Hello and welcome to another episode of Blue Alpine TV. First, I want to start by apologizing for yesterday's episode, which didn't have any sound, but hopefully today we'll have audio and good audio quality, so it won't be a problem. In today's episode, we will talk about Bitcoin and general, the market going red again, what exactly happened and what kind of consequences we will see. And we'll look at actually transaction fees and transaction prices of Bitcoin with this price drop a bit. And then we will look at Ripple's two new white papers and what it means for Ripple's future. So let's jump right in. Bitcoin is actually one of the big losers in the last 24 hours. It has gotten very close to 12K and then dropped down very strongly back to 10.5. And it has been going down ever since. And not really clear what happened here. It could be that it was a kind of a bull trap, as the technical analysts call this. In any case, it shouldn't faze you at all. We always say invest into the fundamentals, not the price action. So obviously some volatility will happen still. Now, with this, in our first news story, actually what we want to talk about is that it has since I want to say a couple of weeks now, almost, I would say 1 or 2 months, the Bitcoin transaction fees have already dropped quite low. So we've had these all-time highs in January 2018, and it was close to 37 US dollars, which we can see here. Here it's even higher, so around 55. That was in end of 2017, so just before Christmas, and then it actually started dropping steadily. And since I want to say around 2 to 3 months, this has been on an almost all-time low now these days. So we're looking at 2 to 3 US dollars in transaction fee. And this is actually very, very good. Another thing what happened with this huge, I want to say, with this strong run close to the 12K from Bitcoin was actually that the Bitcoin dominance has increased again. So it dropped down close to 30%, and it was even going to be lower than this, but it actually came back up. So that means that people have actually taken money out of their altcoins and have reinvested their money into Bitcoin because they realized that Bitcoin might be going for a bull run very soon. So that's why you've seen in the last couple of days, you've seen a lot of red on the altcoins, but you've seen a lot of green on Bitcoin and Litecoin. However, this game has changed now. That being said, it's still the dominance of Bitcoin is still close to 40%. And for these days, I think this will stay until an altcoin run will start, and Bitcoin's dominance only then could potentially sink. But obviously another very interesting fact is, because originally Bitcoin Cash was created because obviously technological changes as well, but on the philosophy side they said, look, Bitcoin is getting too expensive, it's slow, and it's not what it set out to be. So the Bitcoin Cash and forks, and in the front lines here is Roger Ver. He has been a Bitcoin evangelist from the first minute, but he has since then turned his back on Bitcoin and is focusing on Bitcoin Cash. And he's actually saying that it's super expensive, it's slow. Yeah, he's saying it is slow, expensive to use, and unreliable for transaction by the intentional design of current Bitcoin supporters. Now, obviously, this doesn't really apply now because the Bitcoin transaction fees have sunken quite a bit. It is actually even cheaper to transact Bitcoin versus transacting Bitcoin Cash. So yeah, as you can see, these forks, in a bull run or in a high time kind of makes sense, but with time, when these prices sink again, when the hype dies down, the forks don't really make a lot of sense. So there is no real I want to say reason for Bitcoin Cash to exist besides the obvious philosophical debate. But on a technological sense, Bitcoin is getting more of the action than Bitcoin Cash these days. But it will stay interesting. So I think Bitcoin Cash is kind of a hedge for Bitcoin. If you believe that Bitcoin is actually in danger, Bitcoin Cash might be a good hedge for that. That being said, it's gonna stay interesting. So with Lightning Network and with SegWit being adopted by Bitfinex, as we've talked about yesterday, all of these topics, Bitcoin will definitely get some shine and some action this year. The question is, how will the dominance stay? Will it drop below 30%? Will it stay, etc.? Now, next news story is one topic that we've talked about a bunch of times here as well. Ripple paper pledges new start for 40 billion XRP. So as you know, Ripple has been around for since 2014, and since then the white paper has not been changed or changed at all. And a lot of critics have said that it's too centralized, that certain technological changes are needed in order to become like a real strong good currency. Ripple since then has only boasted just very, very good partnerships and potential investors. So one of those investors includes Santander Bank and SBI. I think UBS and all the big banks are also part of the deal there with Ripple. So it was always a bit under scrutiny from outsiders and from other people. But Ripple has now actually published 2 new white papers. And their goal was to get Bitcoin's technology closer to academia so they can profit from the innovation that could potentially happen in academia. They have released 2 papers, and the first paper is called Analysis of the XRP Ledger Consensus Protocol. That's this one here, which has been released today. And the second one is called Cobalt, Byzantine Fault Tolerance Governance in Open Networks, also released by them. They are fairly technical, so down the road there is mathematical proof of how they want to reach consensus here. We will update our reports on Ripple on bluealpineresearch.com, so it will reflect parts of the research and the analysis of these 2 papers, but in essence, the 2 papers have 2 main goals. So one is safety, that the network won't fork into 2 competing networks, and liveness, which is that the network won't get stuck and will keep processing transactions. So this is these are the goals like of the Ledger Consensus Protocol. In terms of consensus, it is, as you may or may not know, Stellar, the founder of Stellar, Jet McCaleb, was actually the co-founder of Ripple as well. So it started out very similar. So Stellar started out very similar to Ripple. Since then, it has technologically changed a lot, and it is a foundation compared to Ripple being a company, a startup, and they are closed source, so it's not an open source type of situation. And that obviously is one of the big critics' main points. So Thomas, who is the Ripple CTO, Stefan Thomas, he's saying what we're trying to do here is add some defenses against some unlikely attack scenarios. Basically, it says you can't completely manipulate the entire network. The key word here is unlikely. Thomas argues these attack vectors aren't viable unless the attacker was a state actor, say the US government, with enough money and technological resources to disrupt the network. And though he isn't particularly worried about this happening, Thomas said that the startup is trying to protect against those use cases anyway. Interesting that this gets mentioned, considering that Ripple is working with some of the biggest companies in the world, or the biggest banks in the world. There is, I think, always the risk that a state or an organization or an institution with that much money and power could take over the network. So by design, I don't think this is a smart idea to create the entire network like this. That being said, we need to look into the research papers and analyze it a bit more. So Cobalt, in the second paper, there's also a mention. You can think of XRP as kind of a like voting system where each node storing Ripple's transaction history gets a vote on what happens next. To help it accomplish this, each node in Ripple carries something called a unique node list, a UNL, a list of nodes that on the Ripple network that the node considers legitimate. So depending on this UNL, a transaction is either verified or not verified, and this node is considered legitimate or not. And depending on that, the decisions will be made in the network, and that will turn the network either in this way or in another way. In the article here, it also says that a lot of people still criticize it because they say Ripple is actually behind in terms of technology. But Stephen Thomas is arguing that that the critics will always say that, but Ripple, it kind of like for Ripple, it makes sense that they publish these new white papers and that they're working on innovation, because that will show to the world that, hey, we don't only have the partnerships in place, we are already and also working on the technology. So for Ripple, it makes a lot of sense and it is a lot of good PR. Also, working closer with academia gives them some kind of legitimacy that otherwise they would be as marked as this Silicon Valley startup that only has money in focus and has a lot of coins in distribution and in the wild. So I think it kind of makes sense that they are placing this together with academia. Whether this will become an alternative to SWIFT, or whether it will be a safe and secure cryptocurrency, only the future will show. I think we are still away from even bigger hacks, actually. I think a lot of exchanges and organizations, banks, and all of these things might get hacked with cryptocurrency involved some kind of way. This could obviously bring in a lot of negative PR to cryptocurrency in general, but also a lot of negative PR to that specific coin. So I'm not saying that Ripple is in any way in danger or something because of the topic of security, but it could be that be it Ripple, be it Monero, Bitcoin, any kind of coin that is involved in some kind of hack could be under the scrutiny of PR. And yeah, with that, we're already at the end of today's show. Let's hope that tomorrow we will retry to hit the 11K again, so that we're going back up and trying to really crack this 12K after. But it looks like we've lost some volume, we've lost some momentum, so hopefully we'll get the power back up in the next coming days. So make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the next one.